everybody. Welcome back to my channel. Is that what you wanted, Jim?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I
Okay.
like that.
Welcome back to another episode of Snip'S Comlink, everybody. I know it's only been a week since we have not seen each other, and that's completely fine because in this world, mental health comes first. And I needed a break for the weekend. But now we're back, and not only are we back, we're back with one of my best friends in the entire world, Jim, Fulcrum in the
Yo,
Force. And we're really excited to be here, mainly because we're going to be ranking the F. I don't know if I'm going to fully say the F word, but the F out of these Star Wars shows. Because
yeah.
we love rankings. We love
Who
ranking
doesn't
things.
love a good ranking? Am I right?
Right, because it shows different opinions, and then you can throw shade, and then you can.
People don't agree, and then they
Oh,
they love it.
they
They
love
love
it
it.
so much. They love the chaos, which is crazy because people loved the hot takes video with Simon, and I
Yeah,
love me heights. I love me some hot takes. So,
yeah. Oh, and Simon's the best person you can go to for hot takes,
oh,
man.
absolutely. I think the
Yeah,
only two people I would go to for hot takes is you and Simon.
yeah. That's fair. I feel like
So
we're the only ones that are like, we'll give it to you straight.
straight 100%, and you guys like just have no. You guys are just murderous.
Yeah,
you just
yeah,
you guys both go
yeah.
into I
We'll we'll go straight in
destroy.
for the jugular. We don't care.
Oh my god!
That's why
But
me and him get on
I
so well.
love it. I love it. It's such an energy that I love seeing. And like, obviously, we're not in person, but virtually, I love seeing it. So yeah, if you guys don't know who Jim is, he's Fulcrum in the Force. He has a YouTube channel as well. His Instagram. Are you still full time at Padawan?
Not full time
Part
because
time?
part time. Yeah.
Okay, he works part time at Padawan Outpost, which if you don't know what that is, it's a lightsaber company out in the UK. Check him out. That's actually where I have most of my sabers from.
Me too,
And he's
surprisingly.
look at that.
Yeah.
And then surprisingly enough, he's just an all around amazing guy that has brought me up from some of my biggest lows this past year. So I just need the people to know how much I appreciate you, Jim.
I appreciate you too. You know, the one thing about the Star Wars community is it can be problematic, let's say, but you can also meet some of the best people through it, and that's what I feel about you. I'm like, from day one, the first time like we properly conversed, I'm like, this is my people. This is my people right here because like we just on a
We
level,
clicked.
we're there, and it's just like, and I love that. You don't always get that with a lot of people, but you and I have always just been like, "This is my dude. It's my dude."
Literally my
Yeah,
dude. And I'm
yeah,
so and for the people that don't know, Jim's coming to Florida for holiday in just next month.
yep,
And I am gonna drive down to the lovely city of Orlando to see him in person, and we're gonna officially meet. So
yeah. It's gonna be
that will
cool.
be hella
I'm really looking forward to
exciting.
that.
But now that we got through our introductions, peep my Adam Driver shirt because
I love it.
I just love him so much. I'm actually terrified because he's apparently coming to film here in November, and I just cannot be singing around the city with this shirt if he's in town.
Can you imagine? Can you
No,
imagine?
no, I don't. I don't.
Like you
I don't
turn up to
want to.
set and you've got dressed in the dark, and you're like, "I've made a terrible mistake."
I could no. I could not. I would throw. Oh my god! It's like
We're gonna have to lock you
I
away for a
can't.
month, aren't we?
Probably
Yeah,
no.
fair, fair.
He's gonna be filming here till March.
Oh,
Oh god, I can't be out of the
wow,
city.
it's game over.
Oh my god, like the other night,
Goodbye.
I had this phone case on my phone, which by the way, if you guys want a really good phone case, Rise of the Case comes out with these, and they have different designs as well.
That's pretty cool.
Um, yeah, it's really durable. It doesn't break.
See
And
my phone case. It's a lightsaber and
oh,
stuff, but
that's
I don't have
dope.
Jim on it.
I love that.
Yeah, right.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And the crazy part is I used to collect Star Wars phone cases all the time. But yeah, Rise of the Case, definitely check it out.
Nice.
But I was about to go out, and then I realized who I was going out with, and I'm like, oh my god, this guy knows Adam Driver. I should probably not have this on my phone case, on my phone. So I took it off.
That's fair. I think
and
that's probably the right
and
call.
I was like, he probably doesn't know who this is, so I'm good.
Yeah. Nice. Good shout.
I know. Good shout out to Rise of the Case. They're great. But with that being said, let's jump into why we're here. And that is
Yes.
Star Wars TV shows ranking. So I am actually going to go from bottom to top. So the least show you do not like
Hmm.
bottom, like into, like in the words of Simon, into the bin.
I think we all know where we're starting.
Okay. So we actually ranked 11 shows. Jim and I like were talking before this, and we're just like, oh, I didn't know you added this show. Oh, I didn't know you
Yeah.
added this. So collectively, at my number
Somehow I
11,
still only have 10.
because you didn't separate
I
Clone
didn't
Wars.
separate those two, and I'm not going to.
Okay. So at my last list, and just mainly because I haven't seen it, that might
Hmm.
change after we get off this. Droids and Ewoks. Didn't see it. So,
That's
but it was
fair
crazy. I
because
watched the Ewok movies as a kid.
have you watched them recently?
Not as of recent, but I saw them
They're
when I
the
was a
thing of
child.
nightmares, those movies. The thing of nightmares. You watch them, it's terrifying. And you might want to cut this bit out. None of the Ewoks have bum holes. Weird.
Do you really want me to take that out? Because I
No,
will.
leave it in. Leave it in.
Okay.
I don't care. Yeah, weird.
That is strange.
Yeah.
And I'm
So
glad you were looking down there to
there's
realize
one
that.
bit where Wicket does a forward roll and you see everything, but you don't see anything. It's weird. And you're like, this is creeping me out too much. I need to stop watching. They're
So for
bad.
all
They're bad.
so for Halloween, if you're wanting a movie to terrify you, check out the
Oh yeah,
Ewok
watch
series.
Caravan of Courage. Oh my god, you won't be the same. But the
Yeah.
cartoons. So I grew up with those cartoons because obviously they started in '85, and in '85 I was 7, so they hit me right in the sweet spot. So and that was like a couple of years after Return of the Jedi came out, so there was nothing else on the horizon for Star Wars. So it was a big
Absolutely
deal.
not,
Like
no.
we got to see 3PO and R2 and Wicket and everything else, and I've always really enjoyed them. Like I don't think they still stand up today because they probably don't. Most things from the '80s
They
don't,
have a
even though I like them.
vintage sense to it, which is nice. Like for example, and the
Yes.
reason why I'm saying vintage is because like it reminds me. I saw the poster for it. Kid you not, reminded me of the Jetsons.
Oh, for sure,
The
for
same
sure.
animation style of the
Yeah,
Jetsons, and I'm
yeah,
like when I think of and I watch the Jetsons, gives me that vintage feel, and that's
yeah,
what seeing the poster of droids and Ewoks gives me.
yeah. No, and that's kind of what that was where they were aiming.
Yeah,
Flintstones, Jetsons, that sort of level, and I think they did it well. But that's on your bottom because you've not seen it, and that's
I have
fine.
not seen it.
That's fine. Do you want to do
Um,
just your list, or do you want to do my list at the same
I
time?
was going to ask you what's at the bottom, complete
So
bottom
at
of
the
your
bottom,
list.
because I haven't seen it, is Resistance.
Mm. And actually, speaking of Resistance, that's my next one.
Right. Because I've not
Um,
seen it. Because I watched about 2 minutes, maybe three, and I was like, this isn't for me, so I'm not going to watch it.
so starting off on my 10. Um, the reasons why my 10 is I got to episode 3 and I just didn't get the show. I get that it's during the time of the sequels.
Yeah.
I get that it's during the time of the Resistance and the First Order. I wasn't clicking with the main character. I thought it was cool to hear Oscar Isaac again.
Yep.
That was nice. And of course, like the other characters, it was nice to hear. Obviously, like Kylo Ren wasn't voiced by Adam Driver, which a little bit salty about. But it just didn't hit.
Fair.
And it definitely, it's, and there's a lot of times people say, well, certain things are meant for kids. Like, for example, people, when they think of Disney, they're like, Disney's meant for kids. But I'm like, no, F you. There's a lot of good things that Disney has done that is completely adults. Um, but that show felt like it was just for kids.
Which is interesting because most Star Wars isn't just for kids.
Yeah, no, it's not.
I would say everything else they've made isn't just for kids. But that show specifically aimed
For
just for
kids.
kids, which is fine, totally fine. But that's why I think it didn't click with me and it didn't click with you because it's just like it's not our level, and we love cartoons, so that's
Yeah.
saying a lot.
Oh yeah, that was like, yeah, we both love animation and cartoons, so that
Yeah.
it wasn't good. I wasn't liking also the in like the just where the story was coming from. Like, this
Hmm.
guy just landed in this cargo ship or this cargo area, and he was trying to, like, he wants to be a resistance pilot, like, wants to be the top of the top, and I'm like,
Mm,
eh. That's what
yeah.
I felt.
Fair
That's
enough.
that's resistance to me. It's eh.
Okay. So
All right. What's your next one?
so we're on 9. Is that right?
9. Yes.
9. Okay, cool. So my 9. So this is my first rank. Okay, because I didn't rank Resistance, and you've split something that I haven't split. So my first ranking, number 9, the absolute bottom of the pile, the worst thing in Star Wars TV show. Nothing is worse than this. It's the bottom of the barrel. It's the Bad Batch.
Ladies and gentlemen, and everyone listening in between, when Jim and I first met, it was on some other guy's live stream where we were recapping these shows. And I gave the impression that I actually liked it,
Yeah.
but then realized after it was all over and we have ended the first season that I was like, it really wasn't a good show. And Jim was right every single time.
Every time people are like, this is going to do this, we're going to go here from here, and I'm like, this is not going to happen. It's going to stay on the same level. It's going to be fetch quests every single episode, and we're going to leave at the end disappointed. I was right. Doesn't
Yeah.
mean to say there isn't good elements in it, because there are.
Yeah, there were definitely some like, there were some episodes that I was really like, wow, this picked up. Like the Empire, when the Empire showed up again, like towards the end of the
Yep.
season. And when I saw Rex, that was
Yes, of
great.
course. But there's the problem. There's the problem with that show, is
Yeah.
the elements that they're sprinkling in are the more exciting parts that you do want to know about, and the main cherry in the pie tastes like shit.
Yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah.
It's just, it's not good. So my ninth, so technically my lowest above Resistance was the 2003 version of the Clone Wars.
Okay.
It just,
So what are you covering in that? Are you covering
covering
the
in that,
movie?
I'm the no, because the movie that
So
the Clone Wars came
you're
out,
doing the OG animated.
the OG
So
animated,
yes.
yeah,
Okay. So I haven't
with the
separated that, but I
funky
can. But actually, I can.
yes, yeah, the
See, I
funky
yeah.
animation, and oh, it just looks so just like, if anybody watching right
Very
now,
Samurai Jack.
Google very Samurai Jack, and they should have left it at Samurai Jack only. Like, that should not have been entered to the Star Wars universe. Like, I did not want to see that. There's a reason why the show didn't succeed. And it just wasn't good. It wasn't a good show. It actually, if anything, turned me off more about the Clone Wars.
Hmm.
But then, obviously, we all know this. The show got a movie in 2008, and then the series immediately after. And that series ran from 2008 all the way to 2020. Well, it had its hiatus, but like it did better over time. Just that initial, I like to say the initial pitch for Star Wars: The Clone Wars wasn't the best.
Okay.
So yeah, that's my next one is that one.
So
So it's
that's your
technically like my ninth.
okay. Okay, so this will be because I understand where you're going now. So I've actually separated that and I put it in. So I now have a 9. So Bad
Okay.
Batch will be a 10, right? My number
Mm-hmm.
10. Resistance underneath it because I've not seen it. My 9 is droids slash Ewoks, only because it doesn't hold up, and it doesn't have the story arc like you'd expect from everything that we've had since.
Yeah, I mean, like for example, like back then, like that only really covered the original trilogy.
Yes,
Like nothing else really kind of
but
existed.
not even really. It just kind of it was offshoots over there. These things are
Yeah.
happening over there where no one could see them, and it was only fine, like enjoyable, but doesn't add anything to the overall lore, which kind of proves that how Bad Batch is so terrible because you're like that does add to the lore and it's still worse.
It was still so bad. So I'm gonna okay, so my eighth,
hmm
and I might get some shade for it, and maybe it's because and you're probably gonna hate me for this when I say this.
I'm intrigued.
Um
I actually
oh
think I
god.
know what you're going to say, but go ahead.
Not very a big Lego person.
Okay.
So Lego Star Wars is the
You
next
are
one.
aware of where I'm sat.
I know, right?
I'm gonna set up a whole new area just for like streaming and podcasts and stuff, and because in my main room I don't get to show off all my Lego anymore because I've got too much of it, as you can see, and this is how you treat me. This is where we are.
Yeah, so I'm
Okay,
sorry.
okay, fine, fine, that's fine, that's fine. I see you.
But so yeah, and it just I don't know. Maybe I needed another. I needed to give it another go. Maybe I just need to watch it again. I'm not a
You're
big.
you're you're putting all of the Lego Star Wars stuff together, yeah? So you're including like terrifying tales in that, yeah, where we actually got a bit of backstory to Ben Solo and the Knights of
Yeah,
Ren. But you're like, nah,
yeah.
nah, I'm not having it. Interesting. That's an interesting point, and I think you should reassess your life.
Fucking hell. I will. You know what? Okay, I will give it another go.
Okay,
But
good.
it's the fact that like I'm not into Legos.
Right, okay, I need
Um,
to stop you there as well. It's not Legos. Oh my god, the plural of Lego is Lego. And if you say Legos, I swear down, I'm gonna hunt you down and I'm gonna end you with Lego.
oh my god, I can't breathe. Okay, 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 okay. Um, what's your next show, Jim?
my 8 is the aforementioned Clone Wars animation.
Gotcha. Okay.
I liked parts of it. I thought Anakin was dope in it. I thought he was like story
Anakin
wise.
definitely was more agile. Like he had
Yes.
more like, oh,
Yeah. And
like
he felt closer to an Anakin that could turn to the dark side than I think what we got in the Clone Wars TV show.
I can see that. I will definitely say with Anakin in the 2008 adaptation of Clone Wars, Anakin, we saw more of a human side to
Mm.
Anakin, like a sympathetic human, caring. I mean, not saying that he wasn't caring in the movies, but he was so, and it's just the writing. Um, his character was so cut. Like he is the whiny boy in this one. He is the adventurous kid in this one. He is the I'm married and I'm about to have a kid and want to basically keep her from dying in this. Whereas in the Clone Wars, he's just like, oh well, like I'm also this badass general, or I'm like I have an apprentice and um I hate like I know he hated slavery to begin with, but like you really saw like
Yeah.
how he felt about it, like in the Clone. So there's I feel like old school Clone Wars kind of made him more like a you could the transition from Jedi to Sith very clear cut.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And we got a really
Um.
long-faced Dooku as well,
Oh.
which is fun. So long. His face was so long. It went on for days.
I think the only character from the 2003 version that looks normal is Yoda.
Yeah. No, I'll give you that.
Everyone else looked so off. I was just like,
Grievous
this
looked
was a
good.
choice. Well, yeah, because he's a mechanical machine, but everyone else here was
Oh, humans.
human.
They were way off.
Horrible. You know what? Freaking I'm gonna butcher his name. I'm gonna be very upset. Mundi, Jedi
Kayadi
Master
Mundi.
Kaya Mundi looked normal
Yeah.
compared to them.
Yeah.
I mean, he originally has a long face, but like they also have elongated faces, and I'm like,
And they're not supposed to. Yeah.
choice.
Yeah.
Um,
It's definitely a choice.
and Dave Filoni actually he didn't do that show, did he?
No.
Makes sense.
That's why it's not canon.
There you go.
There you go.
There it is.
That's
So
when
that
Disney
was
went, we're bringing all of these things over, not this.
thank God.
Yeah, right.
You know what? Let that
Let
be
it be
that
in its place,
in the vault
which is over there.
in the shadow realms.
Yes, the Shadow Realm. You can tell you've been speaking of Sems. Shadow Realm, the bin.
He's just hysterical. I love him. Like he's just so funny,
So
and
funny.
he's just
We've
funny.
We've got some stuff coming up, me and him together soon.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, me
I'm
too.
so excited.
It's going to be so much fun.
Okay. So my next show. So your number 8 was the Clone Wars 2003 version. Yep. My number 7 is the Bad Batch.
Wow. Wow.
Only reason why I put it.
Wait, I need a minute. You're putting Bad Batch above Lego? How are we even friends?
Because we both love Ahsoka.
I'll give you that. I'll give you that. But I'll be honest, hanging on by a thread.
I wasted 16 weeks of my life last year for nothing.
Yeah, I know. I don't. You don't. There's nothing you can tell me that I won't agree with when it comes to the
I just like I think it was Sam, so Absolute Sabers for those that don't know, who said he was going to start rewatching it because season 2 is coming out. And I'm
he tagged me and sends in it.
Again?
He's like, "Do you want to join us?" I'm like,
"Fuck."
I was like, "I'd rather have the shits for a week."
I think I did see that.
Real talk. I would.
I just listen to Dave Filoni. If you ever watch this video, it was a choice. It's not my favorite.
It's the worst thing he's done. And I love him. I love him to bits. But we can't all have bangers every single time.
No. There's not going to be bangers, and it's just not one of them. And I know people always say, "Well, first season of Clone Wars was awful." Like God knows. Blah, blah, blah. I would still rather watch the first season of Clone Wars than put myself through watching the Bad Batch. Like, And plus, if anything, there's some arcs in the first season that I actually kind of like from
Hmm.
Clone Wars. Um, there wasn't an arc in Bad Batch that I liked. I
No,
mean, seeing Cad Bane was cool.
it was cool.
Seeing, you know, Rex was cool.
That's what I'm saying, though. It, those elements that they brought in to go, look at this. You're like, oh wow, that's really cool. Why can't the rest of this show be like that? And it wasn't.
Yeah. So it wasn't given it to me. What is your number 7
Oh, I'm
interesting?
about to piss a lot of people off. My number 7 is the Book of Boba Fett.
Oh, how is that going to piss people off?
Because there's a lot of people that love it, right? And the thing is, I'm gonna say from here on out, from here to the top, these are all good shows.
Yeah.
These are all good
Basically,
shows.
once we
Like
right
10,
after this is going to be bangers.
yeah, 10 to 7, I think, are the ones that I would
Shit.
say they're either shit, I don't like them, uh, but from here on out, I genuinely don't think there's a bad show, and there isn't anything from here on out that I wouldn't watch again. So saying that the Book of Boba Fett, or Boba Fett as I call him because I'm British, is a 7 doesn't make it bad. I actually really, really enjoyed the Book of Boba Fett. It's just not as good as, and so
Mm.
that's what I will say with that.
Yeah, and I kind of agree because
Although
that's what.
I do have to throw in this caveat: the Book of Boba Fett had possibly one of my personal greatest moments in the whole of Star Wars in it. But with that one moment, couldn't bring it up.
Mhm. And that moment is,
When Luke and Ahsoka were together.
oh yeah,
Because I'm like, those are
that's good.
my two faves. And their history is combined without them ever meeting, and for them to be with each other
In the same
and
place with each other.
interacting, I
Yeah.
was like, and I cried. I cried like a damn child because I'm like, this is everything
Who
I
did
ever
it?
wanted.
Who did it? It was it's crazy because there's this image that I have in my head of this picture that I've seen for years, way before the Book of Boba Fett ever came out, and it's an image of Luke and Ahsoka, and Leia's also there, and Ahsoka is
That,
explaining
yeah.
Anakin with her with the staff.
Yep.
That's the
Oh, it's
image I
such a
thought.
good
I'm like,
image.
it's such a good image because that's like, this is what everyone wanted to see is Ahsoka talking to Anakin's kids, being like, I knew your father when he was this man.
Yeah.
I knew your dad when he was a general in the Republic. So getting to see Ahsoka and Luke interact with each other in Book of Boba was kind of like she's finally getting to tell. Like in my head, I don't know if the conversation. I have to rewatch the episode. I don't know if they mentioned. I know she mentions like, oh, that's like something like your dad would do,
Yeah. It's so much like my
but
father, and I was like,
so
oh
much like your
god,
father.
I can't do
But them
this.
having, but them having like an act, like just me thinking like now that that's canon, I'm like, oh, they've been together in the same place. They've probably actually talked about Anakin
Yeah.
and what he, was meant to her. And Luke never really got to know him the way that she knew him.
Yep.
So it's kind of like, you know, for anybody that's ever, it kind of hit home because it kind of made me remind myself there's so many kids out there that will never know their
Mm-hmm.
dads, but they'll always have that one person and be like, I knew your dad for X amount of years. And it kind of like hit home. I'm like, imagine all these kids watching being like, this kind of resonates with me because I have someone in my life that remembers my parental figure
Yep.
so well enough to explain it to me and keep my memories alive of him. And so I think like Ahsoka being there was literally just adding those
Yeah.
memories back into Luke, being
And
like
for
he's
me,
never
that
gonna be
that
gone.
one, that's definitely one of the best moments in the whole of Star Wars. But the show on its own,
Yeah. It just wasn't. I like I said, I come into all mainly after the Bad Batch. I come into all Star Wars shows with no expectations.
Hmm.
Because if I come with expectations, I either gonna get disappointed or I'll
Well,
be
this
very
is the
impressed.
problem. Like, I struggle when people are like, well, then obviously this is going to happen, and so is going to show up, and Mace Windu's definitely going to be in it. And I'm like, bro, first off, Mace Windu's never going to be in it, right? Let's just Mace Windu, Cal Kestis, right? Just leave it. They're not turning up, okay? But
Oh
secondly,
my god, Sam's on the hill that Calcus is gonna show up at every single show, and I love it.
yeah, yeah, I'm waiting for the. He's definitely going to be in Andor. Um,
No, he already said it.
Has he said that already? I mean,
He
they
said
have been on the
it.
planet,
Yeah.
but I'm like, he's not showing up. Anyway, um, if if you're looking at it as so and so is coming in and they don't, it's an absolute letdown. Whereas if you go into it going, what's this story all about then? All of a sudden you're open to a lot more happening. And if those moments are sprinkled
Agreed.
in, you're just like,
Agreed. That's kind of like how like so for with Book of Boba, like I knew Fennec and Boba were obviously in the show, but the little snippets of like, oh, here is Cad Bane, here is Ahsoka and Luke, here is the Mandalorian. Like I didn't even expect them to show up. I knew the Mandalorian was somehow going to show up
yeah,
because Boba showed up in his show, and I'm like, oh well, he might be showing up in this show too. Um, but it was just like a surprise. So that's like same thing. Did the same thing with Kenobi. I just walked in with absolutely no expectations. I'm like, I don't. Anybody's
if
like
anything,
predictions
for
don't want
me,
to hear
I
them.
walked into Kenobi with trepidation. I was just like,
I was nervous about Kenobi.
this is not going to be good, and I was pleasantly surprised.
Hmm. So yeah, so like my number six is Book of Boba. So like Jim mentioned earlier, the shows moving on now. These are like actually pretty good shows. Like these are like now we're getting to like our favorites. Book of Boba was good. I enjoyed watching it. I enjoyed Tamora Morrison just being more than a face,
Yes.
if that makes sense. Because for the longest time, to us, he was just the face of the clone and Jango Fett.
Yep.
That's it. And Jango Fett really didn't have a big part in Attack of the
No.
Clones. He was just like, yeah,
Yeah.
I
He
helped
got a
this out on this
sound.
planet Camino.
He got the best sound ever made in Star Wars.
Oh, he did.
I mean, that's insane.
Oh, that was dope. But what I'm saying is, like, past that,
Nothing. He
nothing.
got his head cut off.
Basically. So, like, getting to see him. And on top of that, I think the one thing I love more is that people have to forget that there's so much culture within the Star Wars universe. It's not so whitewashed. So the fact that he was able to use his Maori and Polynesian roots and ancestry to bring it to his character, I was just like,
And
you're just
and slotted in
doing it as
so
service.
nicely as well. It made
Oh,
perfect sense, and you're like, this is what I
so
love.
good,
This is demonstrating that
so
there's
good.
so much more, not just in the Star Wars universe, in our world, and it's just like
Yes.
that's what I love to see, and it's just like, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Tamura Morrison insane. Like, Once Were Warriors and What Becomes of the Broken Hearted, two of my favorite films of all time, and he's just, I mean, he's insane and like hardcore in them, but
Mm-hmm.
it shows how good of an actor he was, and Django didn't get that opportunity to be that, and
No, he
even when he's
didn't.
like Cody, he doesn't really get to be that.
No, yeah, when he was Cody, he was Cody and Rex, and that's basically
Yeah,
it. Like he was
so for
just
him
their
to be able to
generals.
be not just a character now, not just a clone, but Boba Fett, who has a huge part in the entire universe, and for him to get his teeth
Including the
into
Clone
that,
Wars.
just
Oh yeah,
really really nice. Like, and there's so many parts of
yeah.
that show that I do adore, and I have watched it to twice through, and I do really really like it. But it did only hit a 7 for me. It hit your 6 though. So that's good.
Okay, my 6. So what's your 6?
My 6 is Visions.
We're gonna start getting
We are,
like
yeah,
probably the same.
yeah.
Yeah, because like
Because you're insane and you listed Lego below Bad Batch. Bearing in mind, that this is my 6 and I haven't reached Lego yet. So Visions, because Visions was
yes.
incredible. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I loved the different styles that we got into it. A lot of people
Every single
didn't enjoy it
episode.
at all, which
Because people, okay, so I'm gonna be very, very blunt. When Visions came out, people are like, oh, I'm not gonna watch this because it's anime.
right?
And what these bitches need to know is that number one, anime is basically cartoons, but in Japanese style. It's Japanese styled animation.
Mm-hmm.
And they were just like, I don't like it. I don't like how this looks. None of these. I will say this: the only thing that kind of gets me annoyed now is that none of this shit is canon.
Yes.
Pisses me off. I'm like, because there's a one episode with the twins. If they could be canon.
I mean, but that's an allegory for Luke and Leia, though, isn't it?
I know.
But
Basically. But
Ronin,
also just the sabers we saw.
sabers we saw.
Just off the first episode with the girl with the fucking umbrella.
Yeah.
Like I want that. But obviously it's not canon, so it's kind of upsetting. But yeah, but the people that didn't like it, they just, but they like Clone Wars. I'm just like,
It's the
just take
same.
a
It's
chance.
still animation. It's just a different style of animation.
It's still animation. I mean,
and
I just gave shit to the Clone Wars 2003 version,
yeah.
But this is like, as an anime fan, as I should say a recent one, because I became an anime fan within the last year and a half, it was just so nice to see two of those worlds combined, because I never thought I'd see a day
But that's
that they would have
also
done that.
the difference with Visions and what we were saying about 2003 Clone Wars is that's very much one style. This is what we're doing, whereas this was like, here is like, the beauty for me was that we got to see all these different types of anime as well. And it's not just like one type of. I'm not up on my current anime. I'm sorry, it's not my thing anymore. I'm an old school manga guy with Akira, Ghost in the Shell, those sorts of things. Those were my jam when I was younger. My kids love Tokyo Ghoul. Tokyo Ghoul's dope. The one Dragon Slayer. My youngest is insane for Dragon Slayer and is collecting a bunch of like samurai swords from it and stuff.
Do you mean Demon Slayer?
Whatever. That's it. That one with the pig man.
Yep, that's Demon Slayer.
So, well, you can cut this out if you want. The other day, I walked into his room and he's laying on his bed, just laying staring up with that pig mask on, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Just chilling."
Not chilling with the Inosuke mask on.
Yeah, just chilling. And I'm like, "All right." But like my kids love all that sort of stuff, so it's very much a part of my life still. But being an old school, but then also like I love Spirited Away. It's one of my top films of all time.
Studio Ghibli.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's just like, for me, I love the differences between it. I'm like, so here's a new filmmaker, but then I find this very much reminiscent in the Star Wars films, where it was just like, well, we had J.J. Abrams do Force Awakens, and then we had Rian Johnson do Last Jedi, and people are like, it's too different. And I'm like, I love the fact that it's different, because I want to see different takes on things, and that's what Visions gave us. Very much Star Wars versions of what.
There were 7 different animation studios that they sourced out of Japan. Every episode was a different animation studio, and that's just awesome. I'm just like, you've basically just probably like showcased all of their work in this one show and gave exposure to these different animation studios that probably, because like, to my knowledge, with my own knowledge of anime, the biggest ones that are out there, the biggest animation studios are like Mappa, who does the latest season of Attack on Titan. They also do Spy X Family. Actually, no, they don't do Spy X Family. Mappa does something else. Wit Studio, which does Spy X Family and did the first couple seasons of Attack on Titan, Ranking of Kings, and then you have like the other ones like Toei Animation that did Sailor Moon, Viz Media, all those kind of stuff. But getting the like that with exposure on Star Wars, oh, so happy for
And
them.
I'm really happy for them getting a
Um,
second season.
oh, absolutely! I was so happy to see that because I was thinking like, oh, this is probably gonna be a one and done show. But then they said second season at Star Wars Celebration. I'm like,
I've got time for it. I think it has its definitely has its place here, and I enjoy the fact that they are able to like. I know it can be frustrating that it's not canon, but also the fact that it's not canon means they get absolute free reign and they can do whatever they want with it. And you're
free
like,
range of
and that's what
whatever
I
they
want to
want to
see.
do.
I'm like, I want someone who's like a studio that's good with storytelling, phenomenal with their animation, to just go absolutely nuts and just go
Yeah.
for it.
And it's that's also I mean it's one of the so like for me Visions is my number
Okay.
5. Like it's a really good show. um I wish more of the Star Wars shows, even Marvel, I wish they had more freedom of exploring and not having to be so. I mean, Marvel nowadays is becoming very like
Multiverse.
this
Yeah.
because in their excuses, well, we have the multiverse, we could do whatever we want now, but they still follow this criteria
Yeah.
to still make sure everything's still canon to do it.
That's I think that unfortunately I think that writes them into a corner a lot of the times, because it has to fit. And I think what with all these shows, especially the TV shows that we're getting in Star Wars, I think they have that problem too. It's just like you're filling in gaps. Great, but it can only go one place. You can only go so far with it. And I think, that's why things that are outside of the Skywalker saga will be more interesting in that respect because they can go different places and they can take us
Hmm.
to other elements we've not seen before. That's what I'm excited
Yeah,
for.
of course. Yeah, that's why like I keep seeing stories of by stories I mean like articles about whether these trilogies are going to be happening or not and who's directing them, and I'm like, give it a new give it a new fresh take. Like I it could be hundreds of years down the road, we could be seeing a statue of Rey, God knows way, she's passed away long ago. Like let's move on, start fresh. And I think what people also like, you mentioned this literally a few minutes ago, but people forget that the originals and the prequels were not all directed by George
Yeah.
Lucas. The first one was of the originals, and so was the first one of the prequels. Everything else was a different
Yep.
director. So this whole thing of like, well, JJ started Force Awakens and then it was Ryan. I'm like, did you guys forget that literally same shit happened with the
Yeah,
prequels and the
exactly.
original
It's just like, oh
trilogy?
well, that's the problem when you get two different directors. It's just like they, for me, I wish they'd doubled down and gone with Colin Trevorrow for the third one, and actually gone that way because you need to keep it fresh. Otherwise, you just oh, it's a mess.
You'll lose people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, so your 6 is Visions. My 5 is
My
Visions.
five
We just
is the
discussed that.
Lego shows.
Okay. I see that. Cinco.
Yeah. I beg you rewatch them. They're
I
funny.
will.
The thing is, right? I I love Lego. We know this. I love.
I can
I always
tell.
have done. Lego Star Wars is my thing. It also is the thing that cripples my bank balance because this stuff ain't cheap. It's
Respectfully.
it's not cheap. Um, and they keep releasing new stuff, and I keep having to buy it. And then I'm like, oh, I've missed something old, and I need to rebuy it. I'm looking at the Ghost right here. That was 80 quid when it came out, and I spent £350 on that. Hmm. So anyway, let's move on. Um,
Moving on. Okay, so your 5 is
Yes, and I'll tell you
Lego Star
why
Wars.
it's my 5, right? Not just because I love Lego Star Wars, but the elements that it brings in. Now, we had the holiday special, right? And the first thing that happened in the holiday special, it goes on after Rise of Skywalker. Okay, it starts there. The first thing that we saw is Rey training Finn to be a Jedi, and I'm like, thank you, Lego Star Wars, for giving us the one thing that we all wanted. So the minute there, I was like, this is what I want, right? And we got,
It's also the one thing that everyone was asking for in the Rise of
and they
Skywalker
gave it
because he
to
kept
us.
saying, "Hey Ray, hey
I've got
Ray,
something to
I
tell
think
you.
I'm."
Never going to tell you. Um, so Lego gave us that. It gave us Finn training to be a Jedi. In the most recent one, the
Mhm.
vacation one, they doubled down on that, and he's starting to get Force visions of Kenobi because he's training to be a better Jedi now. And with Terrifying Tales, we got backstory to Ben Solo and the Knights of Ren and how that started. It gives us those little bits that everybody's like, well, they need to make a show of this. I'm like, dude, they've already done it in Lego form. Not only is it super entertaining, it's really funny, and Jim loves it. So, what more do you need?
That's all you
What
need.
more do you need?
If Jim likes the show,
You know,
you're
it's golden.
set.
It's golden, mate. So I,
All
I I
right.
beg you to rewatch it and go into it with an open
I
mind and
will.
go,
I
you know
will.
what? This is something a bit different, like Visions, but still animation, still good storytelling, with some fun thrown
I
in.
will do that.
Okay, and I expect your
Okay.
report on my desk by Monday.
Well, I'm sorry to tell you this, but in the States here, it's actually a holiday called Labor Day, which means nothing
Means
to
nothing to me.
any of us, but it's just a day off.
Well,
So I will get that to you Tuesday
9
morning.
a.m. my time.
Excuse me. Oh, that's fine. Oh,
No,
no.
no, no, it's not.
That's
Yeah,
4 a.m.
yeah.
my time. No, thank you. You see that bed right there? That's where I'll
Uh,
be.
fair. I'll give you that. I'll give you that. Okay, then you've got the whole of Labor Day to rewatch Lego Star Wars.
I
Okay,
do. I do. Okay, I
and
will.
then you'll be like, Jim, this is
So,
amazing, and I'll be like, listen, don't. I'm not talking to you.
okay. So my number 4
This is where it gets
is
interesting.
this is I think I
I
think
think we're going to
like
be
ours is gonna
close.
be different. We'll be close, but I think we're gonna be different. I still have a feeling we're gonna be
We've still
different.
got the final four
Um,
shows that are the same in this top four,
correct.
but
I'm
it's
just
going to
telling
be
you
a
that
different order.
the order can be
Yeah,
different. So number 4 for me is The Mandalorian.
wrong, but okay.
I love how brutal he is. Um, the reason why it's number 4, I think
No,
it was a great show. I think it's an amazing show. And it gave me a character that I didn't that I actually was very curious about. I was always fascinated with the Mandalorians. I think that their whole race when they was introduced, like not introduced, but when more was discussed within the Clone Wars series, I was like, this is a really cool group of people. Like they're all pacifists, or for the most part, they all are pacifists. They go by this code that is like beyond law to them, and it's not like the Jedi code because, as we could see, it's just not like the Jedi code. But it was definitely like they had such pride over being Mandalorian. And I thought that was cool. So when The Mandalorian actually came out and the show was coming out and it was like a different director every other episode, which I also thought was
yep.
cool. And then we got introduced to Grogu. I was so annoyed that Disney kept advertising it as Baby
Yep.
Yoda. After the name was given, I'm like, y'all
But the name wasn't
bitches
given
make
until the
changes.
second season.
No, you're right. That's
That
completely facts.
that's
But
mad
the merchandise,
that we didn't get a
but
name
that
for until the
but
second season. What I think is even
but the
more crazy
merchandise didn't
is Star
change.
Wars has been around for 45 years at this point, and we still don't know what species they
Hmm.
are.
Nope, we don't. You're right.
I kind of love it.
It's kind of like an anonymous
But we've seen
species.
three of them,
Like we don't know.
so they come from
Yeah,
somewhere.
they come from somewhere. We don't know how they're born. We don't know how they come out. We don't know how they exist.
I love it.
So yeah, so like with Mandalorian, I gave it it's my fourth, mainly because the other shows kind of like have more of a special place in my
Fair.
heart. Um, it was also the first live action Disney Plus show that Star Wars had, and it got me excited for Disney being live action again versus animation. And I was very worried for the longest time with them coming out with live action shows because Star Wars already comes with its own budget of like they put so much money and time into their movies. They have to equal that in their TV in a live action TV show. And you and I know, working in the film industry, there are TV shows that have a budget and there are TV shows that do not have a budget. And it's like night and day.
Hell
You're
yeah.
like, ooh, we could tell who has a budget in here. But with the Mandalorian, Dave and John Favreau did so well, and just every detail of the Mandalorian was great. I mean, stories, his backstory, seeing Grogu, seeing them going to different planets, them having these little side missions of, oh, I have to, in order to pay a debt, like I gotta go help this guy break out of the ship.
Yep.
And I'm just like, that's a nice side story. I also love how you could see the directorial styles in every
Yep.
episode. Like that was like, sometimes people forget to see that. Sometimes you're like, oh, like a director did this. Like it's just what could be different. But every director had a different style to their episode. And you saw, you know what I even loved a lot? And sometimes people skip this all the time. I love the concept art at the end.
Beautiful.
Seeing that, oh, so nice. Because it gives you a if you and I obviously once again in the film industry, just seeing concept like that, you're like, ooh, that's where it came from.
And
That's
to
how
see
they
where
thought
they
of
went
this.
from there to the final product, you're like, wow, that's incredible, because that's a lot of work. I don't think people appreciate the amount of work that goes into it.
People, and I always stay to the end of the credits, and this is mainly since I've changed my career to film, is I always love watching the credits to see who worked on what, if I recognize anybody's name, surprisingly enough, how much because people forget, like if you can watch Endgame and you see the credits for Endgame alone and how many people worked on that movie in different countries around the entire world, you're like mind blown. It's watch the credits, people.
Yeah, please.
Do
These people put in
watch the
so
credits.
much time and effort, and they deserve
blood, sweat, and tears, pulling like 16-hour days, dude. The 5 minute, they pull. People don't like understand, like to be on a film set, like we are on set, kid you not, for over 12 hours a day. Like it's long days. You're away from your family.
Sometimes
you're
just
living on Red Bull and
Wales
Welch's
for 13, 14 hours in a day. And that's no fun.
Yep.
Trust me. No one wants to go to Wales in the first place, let alone when it's raining.
Yeah. True.
Okay, so that's your 4. So, interesting.
4 is Mandalorian. What is your 4?
My 4 is Kenobi.
Okay.
And I loved Kenobi. I really did. Like I said, I was going into it with trepidation because I was worried about where it would go. Because it's a fine line to do that show when you've got the last thing that Anakin and Kenobi said to each other was like, I hate you and you were my brother, Anakin, to the next time where they're like, I am the master.
The last time we saw each other, I was the master. I was the learner, and now I'm the master. Yeah.
Master of evil. Right. My worry was that you're gonna ruin those moments by essentially crowbarring something in between. And I was very happy with how they did it and how much sense it made. Um, obviously, obviously, fantastic to see Ewan back. Fantastic to see Hayden back. But also, I loved the new characters. I love the fact that we got in it the Inquisitors in it, which was a Rebels thing, and they brought it into and I loved Reva. I loved her story arc. I thought it was insane. Her ending could have been tweaked ever so slightly to make it slightly better, but her character as a whole and where she came from, where she went, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it very, very much. My only downfall for Kenobi was, for me, there was no peril. There was no peril. I'm like, Leia's going to be fine. I know she's going to be fine. I know Kenobi's going to be fine. I know Anakin's going to be fine. So I was just like, I know Luke's going to be fine. And that's like the big build up at the end, isn't it? Oh my God, she's going after Luke. I'm like, don't worry about it. He's fine. That's the thing
Yeah,
that
I
I
can
think
see that.
pulled it down for me a little bit. I'm like, there is no peril here. There is no.
They couldn't,
No, they couldn't.
basically.
And I'm like, and so for me, I was just like, there were elements of it where I'm like, I knew Kenobi was going to save Leia. Obviously, we knew he was going to save Leia because that's what he does. But also,
Mhm.
in the grander story of everything, he has to.
Yeah, there's
Luke
no
has
choice.
to
So
be
you
saved.
have to save her.
There's nothing here that really. There's nothing at stake. But I loved Kenobi's story arc.
I was very hesitant with Kenobi. Like I said, I ever since Bad Batch, I come into all Star Wars shows with no expectations. I don't like doing predictions of like, oh, I predict this person's going to show up or that person. I just can't because if I predict something and it doesn't happen, I'm going to be disappointed at the end of the
Exactly.
day, and I don't want to do that to myself. And with a show like Kenobi, and I grew up on the prequels. That the prequels was my era. The prequels was my trilogy, and I'm like, you're bringing back two actors that have just more Hayden than Ewan, because Ewan kept acting in other things, but Hayden got so much shit over the years to a point that he
Yeah.
stopped acting. And it was basically put on the shelf with the rest of the Star Wars actors that have been bullied by this freaking community to never step on screen again. And I was so nervous that the world wasn't going to like it because they didn't like them back in the day. And I think Ewan said this at Celebration, and it made me tear up. He said, "I wish we got the love that we did from the show back in the day. And the crazy part is the love was there, the voices just weren't loud enough because they were kids." And that's like the truth. Like I was in 5th grade when Revenge of the Sith came out, and I loved I loved the prequels, and I any single time I tried telling it to a Star Wars fan, they're like, "You like the prequels? That's so
Hey,
stupid. The prequels were
I'm you
terrible."
know me, I'm not a prequels guy.
No,
It's
I
not
know
my
you.
trilogy.
I know you. Your trilogy is the
Yeah.
OGs, the original trilogy, and that's completely fine. But I would meet so many. I would have to defend to the end of time why I enjoy the prequels. And then Ewan said it perfectly. I'm like, I just wasn't. My voice just wasn't loud enough when I was a kid, and social media didn't exist really back then. So like now that we can finally say we love you and we just love your character so much, I'm just happy it just came out the way it did and it was received very, very well. Deborah Chow
Yeah.
did so well. And I think people like sleep on that so much. Like so much people sleep on the fact that the film industry, TV industry, media industry is dominated
Hmm.
by men. Always have been. So having a woman direct a show that did very, very well, I was so proud. And not only just a woman, but an ethnic
For
woman.
sure.
Like a woman that's not like, her family is not your typical American family. Like she just destroyed
Yeah.
it. Brought in these characters, these arcs. Riva was like I loved Riva, and I think she said this in an interview, and I remember seeing it. Um, the fact that Deborah allowed her to make her own hair choices was huge, because in Star Wars we've seen it so many times that the director will tell the actor or the actress how they have to look like. We all saw what George Lucas said with Carrie back when Return of the Jedi came out. She was forced, not even in A New Hope, she was not allowed to wear undergarments underneath her dress. And it's just like she had to do everything had to be the way George wanted it to. And so the fact that with Reva, Deborah allowed her to make her own, and then Moses Ingram came with the mentality of like, well, if I want to dress up like Reva for Halloween, I want to have my kinky hair out. I want to have my braids, because like it's an easy thing to do for younger kids that have braids, like easy braid in the back. And that struck a chord in me, because even though I am not a part of the Black community, I am Hispanic. I am 100% not white. It made me happy, because I'm just like, oh my god, we're finally allowing diversity again in Star. Like we're needing in Star Wars needs this so badly. And all the people that gave her hate, of course, are the shadow realm of Star Wars fans we do not acknowledge.
For sure, 100%.
So
I think the thing that upset me the most is the fact that I was not, like, back in the day, I was not a fan of the prequels. As I've gotten older, I've learned to appreciate them way, way more. Clone Wars helped for sure. But the level of hate that was there was never necessary. Like, you could not like something and that's fine. Downright hating it, bullying people is just not okay. It's just like, why? Why are you doing this? None of this exists. None of this is real. Don't worry about it, right? But then we got to Kenobi and everybody's welcoming back Hayden and Ewan, and rightly so. And then we get a portion of the community that are just hating on someone new because they're a person of color, and because of their acting choices.
They did the same thing with
me. Are we still really here? You lot need to get out, because that's not what Star Wars is.
They did the same exact thing with the character Rose Tico.
100%.
Oh, and not only that, they did the same thing with John Boyega's character. Like, I feel that if John would have gotten more love from Force Awakens, his story would have actually changed in Star Wars, and he wouldn't have been such a back burner character. Because in my opinion, I deadass thought when I saw The Force Awakens, I'm like, oh, it's this dude. I deadass thought it was this dude. I'm like, it's the guy with the blue lightsaber going like this. I'm like, it's John Boyega. And then it was not. It was Daisy Ridley, which, once again, no hate to Daisy. I love her as an actress. But I deadass thought The Force Awakens.
His story arc of Stormtrooper come Jedi.
Oh, 100%.
Like, that's...
And it should have happened sooner.
Like, that's not a thing that ever happened. So can we please visit that? It's just really disappointing.
I know, and
for me, I love Reba, and I think with the fact also, like, let's be real, with an actor coming into it, the more they're able to put themselves into the character, the better they are in the character. So 100%. They're like, this is me, and her hair choice made perfect sense as well. Like, I'm like, this just gives the character more gravitas, because this person is in it 100%. And I enjoyed that from episode 1 to the very last episode. I was like, I really like this character. She's pissed off, and we don't know why. We have our theories. Oh, that's right. She has reason to be pissed off. And that was she played it perfectly.
Oh, 100% perfectly. I mean, to a point, and I think what's really crazy to me is we saw this Force ability mainly used with Kylo Ren in the sequels, where the fact he can read people's minds, using the Force to read people's minds. What's crazy to me is I know Vader was, if anything, more powerful than his grandson, which means Vader had this ability as well. Most likely, if he was taught by the dark side of the force, he most likely had this ability. And she was able to bypass him that entire time, proving the worth to be on the dark side, proving the worth to be an inquisitor. Like, you just side swindled Darth
Yep.
Vader. So it's kind of like she just, that story was perfect. I'm like, the revenge was so well done. I do kind of wish that I would have known where she
Yeah, for
went
sure.
afterwards, because it was kind of like she was left on Tatooine. And we're like, oh, we don't know where
For
she went.
me, I think she should have ended by
She went on shopping.
sacrificing herself for Luke. That would have made more sense.
I thought that I think everyone was
Like
predicting
if
that. They're like, oh,
as
she's
Luke's
probably
running
gonna.
away, he gets captured by the Tuscans. She saves him from the Tuscans and takes him back to his family, but dies. Like, that's the perfect redemption arc there for someone who hated Vader so much, but then saved his son. Oh,
The son.
like gave their own life to save his
And
son,
knew
and knew.
and knew he was
That's the problem.
his
Is now
son.
she's out there and she knows everything. You have to kill that character off. I'm sorry, it has to go. You know. So
Yeah.
that's the only place where I'm
Um,
like, everything else, I'm like, yep, thank you.
yeah. I'm fine with that. So, Kenobi's your
Yes.
fourth. My third is Rebels.
Uh-huh.
And the reason why it's third for me is because I still I fell in love with
Mm-hmm.
Ahsoka in
Mm-hmm.
Clone Wars. Like, she became somebody that when I started watching it, I felt like I saw a little bit of myself in her. Like when I was younger, like when I started watching the show, it was, to be honest, I started watching in 2014. So I didn't start watching Ahsoka. Actually, lies. I knew who Ahsoka was because I was at Star Wars Celebration in 2012, and her universe had just started making
Yes.
clothes. And then one of the first things they did was make this like tunic looking thing that had Ahsoka's like hoodie that you saw the her leku. Um, I definitely bought the size. It was not the right size for me, so it's definitely too small. But I like snugged into it, and I was like, I really like this pattern of this person. Like, this is amazing. Like, who looks like this? And then I started watching Clone Wars, and I started watching Ahsoka, and it was all clicking to me who she was. And then I met Ashley XN in person, and I cosplayed as Ahsoka when I met her, and she just was this amazing character to me. So when I first started watching Rebels, I struggled with it because it was so different than
Mm-hmm.
Clone Wars. Animation was different. I wasn't feeling the character at first. I felt like when I saw Ezra for the first time, I'm like, oh my god, he's just like a punk kid. Like, I wasn't feeling it.
Okay.
So that's kind of where it. But then, as you know, and I'm gonna definitely get shade for this. It's okay. I've thick skin. Um, I finally re-binged the heck out of Rebels when I had COVID in 2020, because I had seen Rebels because it was coming out like on the TV. They're like, this season's coming out. After I saw the whole thing with Maul, I kind of got turned
Okay.
off on Clone Wars. I'm just like, okay, like this is cool. But I definitely did see the Vader episode. I was just like, I have to watch this, and then I did. But then after, like, it fell off for me. So, but then during when I had COVID, I forced myself to binge watch it all, and I'm just like, now I know why people love this show so much. Now I know why Kanan became such an important character to people. Now I know why Hera, like Syndulla, like his name, it just has so much gravity and so much power in the Star Wars universe. Chopper, I could, I'm still more of an R2D2 kind of fan, so Chopper to me is like, oh, you're cute, but not like he's the best droid out there.
He is, but all right.
And just having this kind of just, I would still prefer R2D2. Not gonna lie,
It's all right.
over
We'll
him.
we'll,
I
we'll
just
get
love
to our thoughts
R2.
on Rebels soon enough.
Okay. So yeah, that's my
Okay.
third.
Interesting. My third is Clone Wars. I think here is probably where we just we give our top three, and then we discuss each of the shows because the top three is the top three, and we discuss
Okay.
each of them in a whole between us. How's that?
Okay. So do you want to? Should I say my
Give me
top
your
three
top three.
then? Okay. Okay. So 3 is Rebels. 2 is Kenobi,
It's
and then
Clone Wars.
1 is
Okay,
Clone
so
Wars.
3 is Clone Wars, 2 is Mando, 1 is Rebels. So the reason that Clone Wars gets 3 and no higher. Do you know what though? For me, these top 3 shows are the top 3 shows, and I'm like, I love them all.
Yeah, they are the top 3 shows.
Clone Wars, I love Clone Wars to bits, I really, really do, but it does have some downs. It can be a
Oh yeah, there's a
struggle
lot of
to watch some
filler.
of those episodes. I don't know why we've
It's
got
a
a
lot of
kaiju
filler.
in Coruscant, but we have for some reason. I don't understand why we need an entire episode where we follow R2 and 3PO trying to get stuff. I There's so many things that I'm like, I don't know why this exists. Obviously, it's to build out the episode amount, um, but there's dips in it. Whereas for me, Mando gets a 2 for me because it is a character we've never seen before. And like I've said previously, I like stuff that we've never seen before. I like to explore these areas where we haven't been. Um, and I don't need to say much more about Mando because that's just how I feel about Mando. Dope character, dope introductions. Just season 3 is going to be, if they get to Mandalore, as we can
Amazing.
see in the trailer, it is going to be off the chain. Because give me more Mandalorians, give me more. Uh, just give me all of it. Give me all of it. Thank you. Um, Rebels.
I have a feeling, because like for me, like I think of you, and I still see Ahsoka, but I think your connection with Ahsoka is
Yes.
Fulcrum's Ahsoka. It's like when she's assisting the rebels, she's a major part of the rebellion in a secretive, way that's just not what we got in the
Yes.
Clone Wars. And I think with me, I resonate more with Ahsoka when she's younger, when she's in her, she's in the Jedi, she's part of the Jedi Order, especially with her turmoil in
Yep.
season 5. Like, I resonate with that. Like, that's my
Mm-hmm.
Ahsoka. So I think like with you, I see when I see you, I'm like everything that's Fulcrum
Yeah.
is Jim,
100%.
which means Rebels, Mandalorian, like that's
That's
you.
my Ahsoka, and I don't think either of them are a bad choice. I don't think, at the end of the day.
I mean, they're the
Yeah,
same
exactly.
person,
They're the same person,
just different, just different. They just different things
and
happened
in
in
different parts of
that
their
show
life, and
during her life.
for me, I like to revisit these characters that have been through stuff. I think it's why old
So
Luke is
much.
one of my favorite characters. I know everybody hates the Last Jedi, but for me, I like old Luke. I'm like, this guy's been through so
I
much.
said I made the post the other day of how much I love the Last Jedi, and people sleep
People
on
do
it.
sleep on it.
And listen, you can hate the Last. People sleep on it all the time, but was it a choice? Yes. Did Ryan Johnson make a choice? Yes. Did Mark Hamill even admit to it that he was not a fan of what happened? Yes. But as an actor does, takes the
Yeah,
direction of the director, reads the script, and goes with the story and tries to put as much of themselves as they can to make it what people will feel real to them. And that's what Mark did. Mark showed the turmoil that Luke had. And he's been through
yes,
so much. Like, I mean, granted, every single Star Wars character has been through so much. Ahsoka went through so much. Like, she was found by Plo Koon and then was brought to the Jedi Order, then went from being literally a Padawan to straight up like the apprentice of one of the biggest generals in the Republic to being, accused of murder, of being accused of this, and then having to leave her life that she knew behind and just enter this galaxy full of corruption and hardships. And then on top of that, has to deal with the fact that her master turned to the biggest dark side character ever. And now she's just like having to basically, I feel like, this happens a lot in women. When shit happens to us, we are basically like told, like, oh, just brush it off your shoulder, like, put it away, don't
Yeah.
deal with it. Don't, don't, don't go through it. Like, don't, like, put it away. You don't, it's, and like with Ahsoka, like, it's kind of like, I don't know. I felt her. I felt for her when they're like, you can't feel this way because you're in the Jedi Order. Like, no, she's
Yeah.
allowed to feel this way. She's allowed to feel heartbroken. She's allowed to feel
And
devastated
this is why I
because
see
her.
her more in Rebels, because I'm like, that's after she's been through everything. Like, don't get me wrong, like, I love Clone Wars and I love Ahsoka in Clone Wars. Her story arc is probably the best.
It is
Um,
the best.
her in season 7, like her in Rebels is an older Ahsoka, someone who's been through the wars, someone that is still there, still trying to do the right thing, but in her own way, and has been let down by so many people that she's broken. But even though she's broken, she's still trying to do the right thing. That's my Ahsoka, And so for me, I'm like, I'm Rebels through and through. Always will be. I remember seeing the first episode because I remember it being like trailered because it was the first thing that Disney did after getting the Star Wars license,
Yeah.
right?
Oh my
So I'm
god,
like,
yeah.
no,
Well,
what?
yeah, because Clone Wars, if I'm not mistaken, was streaming on, what was it,
Cartoon
Cartoon
Network, yeah.
Network?
And then it finished, and
It was Cartoon
then
Network
it
because it wasn't
finished,
on my, and then it finished up on episode 5. Season 6 was picked up by
yep,
Netflix, which was something that I never thought would happen. It was also very weird to see because you could totally, I hate it. It was same animation, but you could totally tell the difference
yeah,
between where it was before Netflix acquired it
yeah.
to or after. And I'm pretty sure at this point Disney just like, does not acknowledge season
Not
6 at
really,
all.
no. It's kind of like the bastard stepchild, isn't it?
No, no, no. They actually don't recognize it in Disney Plus. Like, it's there. Don't get me wrong, but if you want to see like the active storyline, if you log onto Disney Plus and they show you all the episodes, like important
Oh yeah,
episodes that you
6 is
have to know when
they
what,
don't touch
you
6.
don't see
Yeah.
season 6 at all. They go from 5 straight to 7, and you're
Oh my god,
like,
6.
oh, like,
So for me, I was
well,
like,
shit.
I saw the trailers and I was like, this is an interesting animation choice. Because obviously coming from the Clone Wars to this, I'm like, it's very, very different. And I was like,
And the
yeah.
same director
And I'm
too.
like, this is gonna give me my indication of if Disney can do Star Wars.
Do it.
And the first episode, if you rewatch the first episode of Rebels, Ezra's. I'm not a massive fan of Ezra. I'll be honest. Like out of all the Rebels, he's my least favorite. But his story is interesting, and when you look at it from the scope and the artistic choices, it's there. The music choices, it's there. And I remember finishing the first episode and going, it's gonna be all right. It's gonna be all right. And for me, Kanan, like Kanan's top tier. The three top tier for me: Luke, Kanan, Ahsoka, and no one comes close to those three. And so I am biased when it comes to Rebels because the entire crew, the ship's my favorite ship in the whole of Star Wars. Um, it's just my jam, 100% my jam. And it doesn't mean to say that Clone Wars isn't, because Clone Wars season 7 is some of the best Star Wars we got for sure. Siege of Mandalore
Mm-hmm.
arc
I
is
mean,
immense.
well, I you see when I think of season 7, I only
I
think
think
of the Siege of
everybody
Mandalore.
does.
Because don't get me wrong. Because don't get me wrong, for those watching out there, the arc with the Bad Batch, I
Yep.
thought was awesome. Reason why I'm saying this, because I think I'm like, oh, the Bad Batch showing up and trying to save their clone brother. This is kind of cool because everyone
Yep.
forgot about him for years. They're like, we don't know where this guy showed up, and then all of a sudden we're like, you know what? Let's go rescue him, and he's still alive.
So good.
Thought that was awesome. The fact that they had, I mean, then they made it into a show, and now it makes the first half of season 7
Yeah.
shit. And makes the second half like even better, and it sucks because like I didn't want it to end, but we knew it had to end. We knew they needed to transition the Clone Wars series, or the Clone Wars, I should say, to the Empire. We knew we had to see Anakin changing, Ahsoka seeing the change, and of course, at this point, we all knew Maul was still out there. We needed to see where this was going to go because we obviously saw him take over Mandalore back in, I think it was season 5,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken, right? Because it was not in
No.
season 6. He kills Satine in season 5,
Yes.
right?
No,
I'm not going insane.
That's right.
Okay.
From what I remember.
So,
But
yeah,
like
it's just
the fight between Ahsoka and Maul is the best lightsaber fight in the whole of Star Wars.
and you want to know what else? The fact that the concept CGI was
Yep.
Ray Park. Don't get me wrong. I know there's people out there that have some feels about Ray Park, and that's completely fine. Because of things he's done in the past, completely fine. Listen, you know how like everyone has their opinions, but everyone has to agree that that man's fighting skills next level. So, seeing the concept and them actually filming that sequence and seeing that in person, I'm like, oh my god, wait a minute, this wasn't just somebody else. This was literally him, and they hired an actress. I feel so bad. I don't know her name.
I met her like a month ago.
I was about to say, like, you
I've
met
got
her.
a
You
photo
met like
with
the one who.
her.
If you look it up, like, definitely say the name. But the fact that she was just so talented enough to keep up with him, and it just, people have to like. It's just amazing how technology has seen in person to animation. It's just amazing. But
No.
did you figure out her name?
My brain, man. Seriously. Lauren
Did
Mary
you just look
Kim.
on your Instagram account?
Yeah.
Laura Mary Kim.
Yeah, I met her for that specific reason,
and
because she was Ahsoka and she kept up with Ray Park, and you can see that that's mocapped. Like, and that for me will always be the greatest lightsaber battle in the whole of Star Wars. The whole movies, everything.
I agree.
It's that. It's that.
No, I agree. And I think the one thing, and it's crazy, people like to like downplay the fighting that we see in the Clone Wars animated, mainly because like, well, it's not like real. It's not they're like going through it, but people forget that like the fluidity of them battling in Clone Wars just looks so much better than it does sometimes live action. If you go throughout the trilogies, OG trilogy was very clean cut.
It was two-hand sword fighting.
Dun. It was two-hand sword fighting, and with the prequels, it was more of a dance. It was very choreographed, which is, I mean, technically what you have to do with fight scenes, because you have to choreograph them so you know where every single, clash is going to happen. With the sequels, it was kind of like a blend of both. It still looked very like dancey. Like, well, I'm not gonna lie, when Kylo and Finn were going at it, you knew. I was watching this. I'm like, oh, they've rehearsed this like 1,000 times. Like, and then of course the Red Room scene, choreographed to a T in The Last Jedi. Still love Adam in it though. He was great. But with the Clone Wars, it just that looked like a real lightsaber battle.
But also, it's animation. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah, you can do whatever you want. I will give my reasons also as to why Kenobi's my number 2. So, like I said, I'm a big prequels fan. I think I mentioned this, on Simon's live stream when he was recapping the whole series.
I remember, I was there.
Kenobi, so I said, like, Kenobi essentially healed my inner child. I think Kenobi gave me what I was asking for. Not what I was asking for, but I guess Kenobi connected the dots for me that I was lost as a kid. Like, I didn't understand the connection between, I was like, I don't understand why, yeah, like Obi-Wan was just so old and beat up by, like, when
Yeah.
we saw him in the originals. We're like, I don't understand why he was a hermit just chilling on this planet. And then, like, obviously we saw at the end of Return of the Jedi, not Return of the Jedi, Revenge of the Sith. It's having a brain fart moment for a second, where we just saw like Obi-Wan just walk off, and you're like, what happens between when you walk off and then,
This whole
like,
thing,
there's
yeah.
no way you just
Yeah.
look like you just aged and went through so much shit. And it just, you know what? I was actually hoping that the entire series that Vader and Obi-Wan wouldn't have met. Because it was like, because it was your same concern. Like, how are they gonna connect this dot to one of the most important lines in A New Hope? And just seeing Vader say, "You didn't kill Anakin, I did. I killed Anakin," was like, oh my, like it just hits, because like, that was another thing I couldn't understand as a child, like how Anakin went from Anakin Skywalker, the general, to straight up Vader and like this. And then I was just like, there has to be more human parts of him. But then, like we saw in Kenobi, it wasn't. He was ruthless. Like when he
Oh,
killed that child, I was like, I know Vader was strong and dark and evil, but oh my god,
for me,
I felt it in
the
my
best part. So,
chest.
like, uh, obviously, we'd seen the whole half mask thing before, literally in this moment right here in Rebels. So for me, I was like, I
Yep.
want to see that again because it's dope. It's cool. The fact that they did it obviously with Hayden. The changing of the voice when it goes from Anakin to a bit Vader,
Again,
and I'm
to
like,
Vader.
this is beautiful.
And then I'm gonna, whoever the key gaffer was of that scene needs an Oscar. Because the light and people, oh my god, y'all are gonna like, if you're not in the film industry, you really don't know what this is like. But the lighting adds so much character to a scene. Like, it's so in the way it was lit with the blue saber showing up in the
Just
red.
beautiful,
Oh my,
absolutely stunning, and it adds so much to that
oh
scene that you don't really even really see unless you see it. You know what I mean? Um,
yes. Hmm. You only know if
yeah,
you
for
know.
sure. And it just that whole part was done so very well, so very well. And I think it's one of the
Yeah.
reasons why Rebels resonates with me as well because of that moment between Ahsoka and Anakin where she realizes that her master's gone, and she's like, and it's the classic,
And Silverwood wants to fight,
yeah,
put down
and
her
it's the
life.
classic, you know, revenge is not the Jedi way. I'm no Jedi, and you're like, fucking yes, come on, Peyton, and that's that's all I wanted.
You, yep. I think the only thing I would have asked more of in Kenobi, because I loved Leia.
Yeah, she
Like I
was
said
great.
earlier, I loved Reva. Vivian is such a sweetheart, and you know what? I think this show is just going to only set her up for success. If Carrie was here, Carrie would have been
Oh yeah,
so proud of her. So proud of her. Like, it's hard to pass a baton to somebody. I saw it with, working on The Color Purple with Danielle and Oprah. Like, it's not an easy thing to do, is handing the baton that you carried for
yeah.
so long to somebody else. Oh my god, I'm trying not to cry because I have a poster of Carrie right here, um, as Princess Leia saying, "May the Force be with you." Um, but it was just kind of like seeing like Leia as a kid was seeing Carrie. She was so rebellious. She was ever always spoke her. She was princess. She was our princess. Like, that was her in real life. So seeing that Vivian did that,
She was Leia,
she
hundred
showed
percent.
she was Leia. She is
Yeah,
she is Leia. It's not she was. She is Leia. And that's something that was was terrifying for the longest time because after she had passed, everyone's like, "What are they going to do?" I remember the rumors of the only person that would be allowed to play Princess Leia moving forward was Meryl Streep because Meryl and Carrie were best friends.
Yeah, that's not how that works.
And I was just like, no, that's not how that works. I think even Meryl would have been like, absolutely not. I'm pretty sure she said absolutely not. But that's such a hard thing to do. Is try to replace somebody that has such a big part of the Star Wars universe. So Kenobi did very, very well. I kind of wanted more out of the other two Inquisitors.
Yeah, especially when you have watched things like Rebels and you know where.
And their fighting styles and stuff like that.
Although
Like,
I'm not going to
where did
lie,
it come
I'm
from?
okay with them not bringing in the helicopter lightsabers. That's okay. Leave that animated. That's fine.
I mean, technically, the Grand Inquisitor, that was his saber.
Yeah, but I mean physically flying.
And you only saw it once.
You know when they fly in Rebels. I'm like,
oh yeah,
that's
you're right.
To be left out. That's a cartoon thing, and that's totally cool.
Oh yeah,
please don't
that's
do that
fine.
in live action because it will look dumb.
It would. I'm like, you're gonna have someone on a string
like
just
Mary
coming
Poppins.
down like Mary Poppins, and we already have a version of that in the Marvel universe. Right, but Kenobi was. Yeah, Clone Wars, Kenobi, and Rebels are my top 3 Star Wars shows, and I like. People are like, and I really wish people stop with this mentality of like, oh, if it's animation, like it's for kids, because there is so much that happens in these shows, like Rebels and in Clone Wars, that kids cannot comprehend. They cannot process
season
this.
4 of Rebels.
They cannot process
when Kanan.
No one can process that. Like not a kid
like
can
every
process
time
what's
I
going
see
on.
that scene, I think of that scene. I'm just like bits because I'm like, that's so powerful. He did everything he could for the people that he loved, and I'm like, what's more Jedi than that?
And for me, like the most powerful scene that always hits me is when like at least before season 7 came out, was always Ahsoka walking away from the Jedi Order. Like as a kid, you can't process that because as a kid you'd be like, oh, she's just walking away, but like as an adult, you're like, she's walking away from the only thing she knew in her life,
her family,
and having to start over. And as an adult,
just leaving
and
it
her family
all behind because they let her down.
And I think because they let her down and they didn't believe in her and they believed someone else's word over hers. Some barely. This is what when I literally say, if
Ahsoka Tano.
And she was the bad one anyway. Like, as a kid, you can't process that because the only person that understands how hard it is to leave someone like that is adults.
And also, I think when you're an
we
adult,
understand what it's like.
The layers to that as well. It's very much the Jedi Council laying their fears of Anakin on his Padawan and going, well, she's had too much influence from him. I'm not surprised. And you're like, dude,
it's time to
have you seen her?
Turn my back.
She does everything she can for the Jedi
Order,
and they cast her aside. Nah, I'm not surprised she left. I would have burnt the place down on my way out, but that's just me.
I mean, Anakin easily could have just turned the dark side there. Right then and there. Just been like, and it's, as an adult, like having someone walk away from you that you cared about with all your life. We feel that. We understand that. Kids can comprehend that. And it's I mean, they do, and don't get me wrong, nowadays kids are getting smarter and smarter and smarter, but if you're telling me right now, if your boy was 3 years old, he would have understand what it's like for Anakin to see his pad, like he wouldn't have get it. He'd be like, okay, yeah, walking away, he's piecing out. Wouldn't have understood it.
I agree.
So it's kind of why like I really do appreciate Dave Filoni in animation, because the shows that he's come out, like people forget he did the first season of Avatar: The Last Airbender, which was an amazing show. Wish he would have stayed for the rest of the seasons, but it's fine. But he had to leave to do Clone Wars, so there's like a you give and you take. But they're just really good TV shows, and I'm really excited for. I never really doubted. I think maybe it was because I was a kid growing up during the power of handing Lucasfilm over to Disney. I really didn't think of it as much because to me, like I saw my favorite thing about going to Disney is going on Star Tours and riding. So to me, I'm like, oh, Disney's getting Star Wars, yes. Like I didn't think much of it. So now that we've had all this, and now we've had Disney Plus, and the fact that they wanted to expand and make all these shows, there's a few out there that shouldn't have happened. Bad Batch, Resistance. But the rest, I'm just like, I wouldn't have wanted any other studio to have this.
No, I don't.
I don't want Warner Brothers to have Star Wars
at this point. As done me dirty too many times.
No, at this point,
they keep doubling down on the wrong people. I don't think anyone has the what's the word I'm looking for? The money, right? Because without Disney, you don't get The Mandalorian looking as it did. Yeah, but
the way it
the
does.
consistency. That's what you get with Disney, because you know that if they're backing it 100%. You know, and sure, people may not like the sequels for what they did, but they backed it 100%. They went all in with their ideas. Were they the right ideas? Not always, but they still backed it. It's not like they let their foot off the gas. They carried on with it, and they were going to do it no matter what. And by having Filoni continue, having Favreau be the bigger part of everything, I think is only good. It can only cause good things. Sure, there's always going to be, one bit of shit in every sandwich. But as a rule, most of the shows are top tier.
Mm-hmm. They've been amazing, and I'm excited for what's coming up. And this is going to lead us to quickly, because we're not going to do this for very, very long.
We all know that there's there. We went off. We carried on.
We did because people don't understand. Like Jim and I, like yes, he may judge me because Phantom Menace is my favorite movie. He may judge me because I am not a big Lego fan like he is, and he may judge me the fact that I put Kenobi over Mandalorian.
I don't judge you for that at all. The other two things, absolutely 100%.
Okay, no, okay.
That last one, no.
Okay. Oh, no. Okay, but our connection with Ahsoka, it's beyond. I haven't met anybody that loves Ahsoka like I do. It's kind of hard, like when people say, "Oh, you're a Star Wars fan. Like, who's your favorite character?" And I have to give a preface, and I say. And they're just like, they rush off like, who? And I'm like, yeah, she was Anakin Skywalker's Padawan in the Clone Wars series on like the animated series. And they're like, oh, it was animation, so it really doesn't count. I'm like, no, bitch counts. Like, she's important. Like, tapestry for a reason. Tattoos for a reason.
Tattoos.
I would show you my I would show you my fulcrum tattoo, but that would require me to.
Oh, you just got it, didn't you?
My pants, and I'm not doing that on camera. Yeah, actually, you know what? I'll show the picture of it. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Ahsoka. I will always be a big fan of Ahsoka. You know what? I also think a big part of it is because Ashley, meeting her, so just I'll fly. She brings so much good, like she's just, you just want to be Ahsoka. You want to be a person like Ahsoka. And that's a character that is very important in a universe like Star Wars. You want to be like Ahsoka. So basically, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but
yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah, I saw this design on Instagram a while ago, and I took a screenshot of it, and I was like worried. I'm like, oh my god, I'm like, anytime I present something to a tattoo artist, they want to do it their way, but I'm like, no, I just want this. I want this. I want this. So thankfully, I got it done on my IT band, and it did hurt for a bit. So, but like quickly, we'll recap on the shows that are coming up that we're really, really hyped about, and then least hyped about, because we know there's a lot coming our way. Not, I guess, not in the same way like
Ugh,
Marvel's coming
Jesus,
out with their
that's too
shit,
hard to
because
keep up
that's
with.
just
It is
that's
overwhelming.
overwhelming. It's overwhelming. I was just like, you're having how many phases and how many movies and how
It's a
many
bit much.
years? Just a little bit. But I think I feel like we're both the most hyped
Of
for
course.
the Ahsoka
Or as
show.
I like to call it, season 5 of Rebels.
I can see that. Because yeah, do you really think the
Yes.
entire season? Because how long?
I
How many
don't know.
episodes
I
is it
don't
going to
think we've
be?
been told that yet. I imagine it's going to.
But do you think the entire season is going to be based off
Yes.
her trying to find Ezra? You don't think
No.
any other like
No.
thing
I
is going
think
to be?
this is
Okay.
their apology for cancelling Rebels to Dave Filoni. I think Disney have gone. Turns out we were wrong. People seem to love all the stuff you're doing. So, do you want to make a new season of Rebels? And he's gone, no, but I will make a live action Ahsoka show featuring the rest of the Rebels. How's that? And they've gone, okay. That's how I see it. Right? Which for me gives me
I believe
live
that.
action Hera. We know that she's coming. We've seen her in those really bad versions of the trailer. Um, we know we're getting Chopper again. Fantastic. The most psychopathic droid in the entire universe. I love it. Um,
You just love
uh,
chaos.
we're going to have uh, Jason Sindula.
And we're gonna have
And Sabine.
Sabine.
Like, so the only things we're really missing are Zeb. I'm alright if they don't bring Zeb in because I feel like Zeb had his story and he kind of made his peace with everything. Um,
Hmm. It's also kind of it worked well in my opinion with Book of Boba when we
yes,
saw Cad. That worked
that's a
for a
tough, that's a
creature
tough shout.
or a species like Zeb.
That's a
That's
tough sell
very
in live
hard
action.
because that means that person has to be on stilts. Has to. It's basically going to be giving the Trade Federation
Yes.
in prequels. I guess the only thing I can think of how they would have to do everything is mechanically, and
Like,
it just
you don't really watch Star Trek, do you?
I saw
Right.
one movie. I think in the
So in
early two
Star Trek
thousands.
Discovery, there's one of the main characters is very, very, very tall, super alien looking face, played by Doug Jones, who, as we know, very good.
Is that the movie? Is that
No,
the movie
it's
with
the
Chris
TV
Pine?
show.
Oh, okay, I saw.
Right.
So I only saw
Then
the movie
then
with
don't
Chris
worry about it.
Pine,
But it's
the
possible
first
that
one that
it
came
is
out.
possible, but I think it's a hard sell. I think to leave Zeb out, I think you maybe reference him, fine. I don't think you need him as a character, but it does also mean we get another version of a live action Ghost, which makes me happy because
Okay,
then there's a chance that they're gonna do another Lego Ghost, and I'll have another one. You see?
you're just in
Oh,
this for the Legos at this
1000%.
point. Okay,
Did
so
you just say Legos
the next
again?
on the list, I'm
Because
just reading.
okay, good.
No, I said
Because we
Lego.
were about to have a falling out.
So I was just writing down the shows of like how these are,
Yep,
how I saw them online. So we are
yep.
super excited for Ahsoka. How excited are you for Andor? Like on your list of like, is it most hyped, least hyped, mid? What are you feeling for Andor?
I can't say a lot about Andor because I'll tell you after. Pretty hyped.
I
Pretty
know you
pretty
just
hyped at the moment.
I good for you. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. One day
Yeah,
that NDA
right.
will expire. Okay, so we have Andor. So I'm actually like, I'm really hyped for Andor because I'm a
I'm a big
big
Rogue
Rogue
One
One
fan.
fan.
Yeah, no,
Thought
for
that was a
sure.
great movie. I I mean, what kind of sucks is it's kind of like what you mentioned with Kenobi. It's like you know the
But
trajectory of where the
only
character's
like
going.
three of the characters. Everybody else in that show,
Right, three.
yeah.
It's up for grabs. Um, but I'm like, so like I know where Cassian's ending.
But
I know
from this
where.
show, I'm looking
Um,
forward to what I wanted in the Bad Batch, which is the changeover from Republic to Empire.
like Republic to
I
Empire.
want to see that happen and how it
No,
impacts all of these planets, which we got teased in the Bad Batch.
tease because they was literally like, oh well, you now have to use this currency because we're using Imperial currency and not
And
Republic
it's
currency, and
Empire
not
Day
Republic
and how
credits. So it's
that
kind of like,
begins and stuff like that. I want to see that because
yeah,
we've never seen it.
yeah, and I we know we didn't, and I think what people forget all the time is like, yes, like you could go from where I'm gonna bring the sequels in, you can go from New Republic to First Order, you know, occupation, but it's so hard for some of these planets to adjust to having a regime take over. Like some
Yep,
planets it works, like some planets like we're like, oh, I'm going straight to the First Order, this is fine, like I stormtroopers, you may
for
invade my
sure.
land and do whatever the hell you want because I don't want to die. I get there's some planets that just like, struggled with it, and so it's kind of like you want
You
to
want to see
see
them
that.
fight back as well.
And like you're right, we get, yeah, we got that taste. I mean, we obviously got the taste in Rebels because that's what the whole show is, Rebels. But we got the taste in the Bad Batch of them changing over, but it wasn't enough to be like, oh,
Yeah.
they struggled with like changing, and that is just not easy. So yeah, I'm really really hyped for Andor. Next is Tales of the Jedi. When it got announced, I was
Yep.
really excited for that because I was just like, you know what, you're giving backstories to some of the characters I needed some backstories in freaking Clone Wars, like AKA Count Dooku. I would love to see his
Yeah.
backstory. And
We got
Ahsoka,
to see little baby
of
Ahsoka.
course. Um, she was so cute, and you can see
I
her. You can
know.
see her mom. Like,
Tears for sure.
I'm
No,
gonna try not
tears
to
for
get
sure.
emotional when that
I'm going to be
episode.
in
I'm
pieces. I'm an absolute mess.
it's just like, because obviously if you're a Star Wars fan, you know, like when you're taken away from your family, like when literally infant, not
Yeah.
even a full like year or two, sometimes you don't remember shit from your parents. Like, so getting a glimpse of seeing a Jedi before that, aside, like we saw it with Anakin, yes, in I listen, Shmi Skywalker, love you, babe, but like, you know, we see it with these other Jedi, and it's just like Ahsoka. Like I always wanted to know. I mean, yes, she has fought for her planet before, but
Yeah.
no one knows who her family is. No one knows what happened to them. All we know is she got picked up by Plo Koon, God knows where. So I'm really excited for that. I think if anything, it will also help non-Star Wars fans kind of get a glimpse into some of these characters that are
Yeah.
just are always just thrown out
That
and
sometimes you can
about.
only really learn about if you read the books and stuff. So I
Yep.
think it's gonna
Hmm.
be really well.
So okay, so we have Ahsoka, Tales of the Jedi, Andor,
So hyped,
Mandalorian
so
season
hyped.
3. We all know what's, dude. End of freaking Boba Fett, Book of Boba. When they came back together, Grogu and Mando.
Yep.
And everyone, I remember so many people were just like, no, he's going to
Of
stay
course
with
he's
Luke. He's going to
not.
continue his training. He's not going to go. Because
Yep.
Grogu's selfish. He's not like Yoda.
Well,
He's
also,
selfish.
like he sees the Jedi, and the last thing he saw of the Jedi was Order 66. So for him, he's like, nah, I'm not on board with any of this nonsense. I'm going back to the man with the helmet.
Absolutely. That's why it was so hard for his training. That's why his training was so hard because he was having to deal with trauma of Order 66. And he goes, I have to now go back into that. And after I just, built, like, tossed it away somewhere in my,
Yep. And
my
more
memory.
Bo-Katan as well. Give
So
me
yeah.
Bo-Katan
So
and Darksaber and More references to Night of a Thousand Tears. Thank you very much. Sold. Yep.
Super hyped for Mandalorian season 3.
Yep.
Vision season
Yep.
2.
Definitely.
Super hyped. Super hyped for it. I think if you haven't watched Visions, please go and do it. And if you're gonna watch it and you're not an anime fan, you can watch it in English. I'm not gonna hate you for it. If you are an anime fan and you do not watch it in Japanese with subtitles,
Even
we
I
got
watched
problems.
it with Japanese and subtitles. So I'm like, so good.
It was so good.
So good.
Dude, you have to like. I mean, you don't understand like how hard like voice acting in Japan. It's like being the next like top tier actor. Like these voices are just iconic for years. So yeah, like I'm really excited for Visions too. I'm also really excited because we all know with Visions, the storyline is different in every single episode. The animation is different in every single episode. So it's exciting to me. I'm like, oh, you guys came up with this. What else is in your pocket? Like, what else are you coming up with? So I'm really excited for season 2. The Acolyte is also coming out. One of the shows coming out in the upcoming future. Don't know when they started filming for that, but obviously with so many light side shows, I know people are hyped for a dark side show.
Hyped for the Acolyte, not only because it's a dark side show. I know everybody loves the dark side. I've always been a Jedi man, Jedi fan, light side all the way.
I'm Grey Jedi. I'm like halfway in the middle.
I absolutely 100%
whether you believe that or
agree
not.
That Grey Jedi is a thing, and I will have no one say anything else.
Thank you for validating me.
Absolutely, of course, there's somebody in the middle.
I feel seen.
Duh.
I feel seen.
Yeah, no, Grey Jedi, absolutely. Qui-Gon was a Grey Jedi. Ahsoka becomes a Grey Jedi. Fight me. But I like the idea of seeing a dark side show. I also like the idea of the fact that we're going like 100 years before Phantom Menace. We're starting to play in that realm, and in that realm is very, very interesting. So technically,
I feel like if it does well,
as well.
Mm-hmm. You're right. Oh, you're right. I'm just really excited. I will say this. If that era does very, very well, I need them to continue and go back to Old Republic and High Republic era. I get we're getting it in books. Great.
Give me a Darth Bane trilogy and I'll be a happy boy.
Awesome.
There you go. That's what we need. We need the creator of The Rule of Two. Yeah. We need a film series based on him and his...
That...
It's already written. Just
because the Sith.
The Book of Sith.
The Book of Sith. It's all in there.
Yep.
So the Acolyte we're really hyped for. Another show that's coming out too. This one is giving me more Resistance feelings. Yeah. It's the Young Jedi Adventures. I mean, I will say I think that show is actually marketed for kids.
Good. So, they probably do need to throw some of the stuff like that in to bring in new fans. I think that's a good idea. Definitely. It's not for me, but that's all good.
Mm-hmm. This is where we're starting to teeter into like most hyped. So like we're not hyped for this. So for mid, like for me is Young Jedi Adventures. To me, it's not gonna be a show that is gonna get me excited. I know like my nephews and nieces, if I were to show them that and they like it, I'm like, oh, then this is perfect for them. Like this was perfect.
Of the Clone Wars.
Now that I'm thinking about it, exactly. The next show that I see on the list.
Okay.
Lando.
It depends.
It depends, dude. Depends. Are we getting like old school Lando, like with Billy D. Williams, or am I getting
Donald Glover?
I liked him in, don't get me wrong, I liked him in Solo.
Here's what I want.
Just where? Right?
Yeah, here's what I want. Opens to old Lando. Billy D. Oh, yeah. Going, I've been to that planet once. Young Lando, adventure, Millennium Falcon, let's go.
That's, you see, and everyone complains about
That's how you do
flashbacks
it.
in Book of Boba.
That's how you do a
That show
flashback.
deserves. That's how you do flashbacks.
Just give me an entire season of
Okay.
Lando having flashbacks to when he had adventures across the planet, across the universe, doing whatever with his droid. Brilliant. And how he kept the ship so clean when Han made it disgusting in a matter of years. It was all so pristine.
Well,
Also,
every man is
if it's
different.
even just a show of showing how he got every single different one of his capes, I'd also be okay with that. I'm a sucker for a cape.
Listen, the capes in Star Wars are iconic. So now we're getting to the last two shows that are going to be coming out in the future. Actually, one much sooner than the other. So there's a show called Skeleton Crew. The reason why I'm not hyped about it is because I still don't know who it's about.
I have no idea. Have we got any? We've got very little.
I have no idea who it is about. So, very, very little. It's like when I'm saying like this show is not coming out. I don't think this show's coming out until 24.
Yeah,
2024.
Yeah, so
it's not going to be for a while.
After Return of the Jedi, so it's set Mandalorian times. Again, stop crowbarring things into the middle.
If this is a live action version of the Bad Batch, I'm going to be pissed.
Yeah. It could go one of either ways because we don't know enough about it yet.
Yeah. And then something that Jim and I are not excited about, and if Simon were here, he would say the same thing. Season 2 of...
That's all I have to say about that. It's soon as well, isn't it? It's like super soon.
It's coming out. It's coming out. Hold on. Andor's coming out September 21st. Tales of the Jedi is actually coming out this fall. Didn't know that. Ahsoka's coming out. I didn't know that at all. I was like, oh, it's. I guess I didn't pay attention to that. It's Celebration. Ahsoka's coming out in 23. Bad Batch is coming out fall 2022.
That's very
which means
soon.
It's good. You know what? You know what? It's actually going to be coming out around the same time as Andor. And the only reason why I know that is because they got delayed, but then they came out with a date. Yes. And I think the reason why I know this is because Sam said, oh, I'm considering doing the after shows for Bad Batch. I'm like, no. What we should do, and I'm going to say this, is I am not going to watch Bad Batch until it finishes.
Okay.
So then I can binge it. And then you can do like a recap show of how it was. Because if I had to sit there for 16 weeks once again,
no.
For 25 minutes.
I can't.
No. I'll wait till the end. Let it air all out, and then I will hop on and binge it. But I ain't gonna do this, man.
21st. Bad Batch
September 21st.
To drop on September 28th. Why are they?
Yeah, they're literally like a week after each other.
That doesn't make any sense.
The hell I know.
Because they're like, we're not going to have anybody watching the Bad Batch, so we need something good.
Well, there's that. And with that being said, ladies and gents, we just recapped ranking all of our TV shows in the Star Wars universe and the shows that are coming out soon, which, I'm excited because, any single time they do a convention, they always announce new things coming out. So knowing that what we already learned from this past year's Celebration, I am so excited to hear what they're going to come out with at next year's Celebration. Like, imagine what they're going to be announcing. And we're going to be in the room.
Same time. In the room. Ready.
We're going to be
you know what we need to do?
That's why,
we do some kind of either your podcast or something where we're actually together in the room having a proper chat. It's on. Yep.
We're doing this. It's on. I'm so excited. All right, my friends. Thank you. If you've been here for the past 2 hours, thank you very much. We appreciate you. If you haven't already, please go follow Jim on his Instagram, his YouTube, his TikTok, even though he doesn't
because I
post
always
much
get
on it, but
banned.
still follow him on TikTok.
Every single time
Do
I
you
post a
really?
TikTok of me spinning a lightsaber,
Oh,
I get banned. I've got like, it's not like I've even got, I've got like 100 followers, and they're like, no. All right.
okay. So follow him on his channel. Probably the next video he'll be having out is his episode of Jen's Cantina, which will be featuring this wonderful girl. You should probably go follow her too. Her name is The Real Jedi Princess. All right, guys. Have the best day ever. Stay drunk. I was gonna say. I was
Stay
about
drunk.
to say stay
Listen,
drunk.
guys, you know it makes sense. Stay drunk, because there's no reason to be sober in this world that we currently live in.
Stay safe.